Hello, everybody. This is Brian Ankney with Auto Success Magazine. I see we've got one heck of a large audience today. Thank you all for coming. This topic must be near and dear to your hearts, as it is to my presenters, Sam and Chris today. Today we're going to be talking about, right from the start, training new members or new team members on CRM usage. And before we get started on this topic, a few things I'd like to share with everybody before we get going. One, we're going to hold questions until the end of the webinar, but I do ask you to type them in as you think of them, because I'll be able to make notes on where we were in the presentation, and when we give the questions to our presenters at the end, if it's not really clear, I can give them a little more context by letting them know when that question was asked. So please type them in. We'll get to all the questions at the end. And one other thing, if you have not yet joined Auto Success Webinars on Facebook, please do. It's a group on Facebook. You just type in Auto Success Webinars. It'll bring up the group. You request to join. In that group, you'll have a few different things available to you. One, I want to know what topics you guys want to see next. I want to know if there's somebody out there that you'd like for me to invite as a guest. And then it's also a place for you to interact with the Auto Success staff as well as my presenters. Now, the greatest function of Auto Success Webinars is the ability to interact with each other. Every webinar we have, I mean, none of these topics are simple enough where you flip a switch and now it works. You know, they're all something that might take a week, it might take a month. You know, some of these things might take a couple of years. And so what I invite you to do is share your successes and failures with your peers that are attending these webinars. You know, if you have a great idea that works great in your dealership, maybe it'll work great somewhere else. Maybe an idea from somewhere else might work great for you. Maybe a pitfall that someone else had, you might be able to avoid, or vice versa. So please share with each other as you implement the changes you learn on these webinars in Auto Success Webinars, the group on Facebook. Now, don't forget to, or actually, if you are on a PC, the questions are very simple. You click on that little arrow. And that arrow, that little arrow right next to questions, it's going to open up the pane. You type in your question, and it'll go. If you're on a smartphone or Android or Apple device, they all work a little differently, especially the Androids. You're either going to have a picture frame, a header, or a footer. Somewhere in that picture frame, header, or footer, you're going to see a question mark. Tap that. It's going to bring up the little box to type in your question. Now, once you're finished, some devices you can swipe and it'll go away. Some devices you have to look for another icon, and that icon it actually looks like a desktop flat screen monitor. So when you click that, it'll bring you back to the webinar. And we have had some confusion in the past with people accidentally getting logged off when they ask a question because they hit the wrong button. And so don't worry. Just the link that you use to join right now, it remains active. You can use that link to join us again. The phone number, if you're using telephone audio, is the same phone number, the same code. It'll just bring you right back into the webinar. So with that being said, I would like to welcome our guest. Today we have Chris Hawthorne, the Director of Training at VinSolutions, and Sam Passer, Associate Vice President of Client Onboarding at Cox Automotive. Sam, if you would, please take us away, my friend.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it. And thanks, everybody, for joining today. So my team at Cox, we set up and install both VinSolutions CRM and F&I, DealerTrack F&I products. So lots of training each week, a lot of experience with this, and looking forward to talking about some best practices today. Really from a CRM perspective, the training matters. A great tool, when used right, it will help you, but really the most important thing is the tool can't do things on its own. It's like having a great tool or maybe even a great fast car, but you're not using it properly. So what we hear from our clients is this is an industry data, 54%, if you're going to buy a product, if you're going to buy a tool, you want to buy it to help you. So people are buying Vin and other products saying, I want this to help me get better. However, the biggest challenge that we'll see is we don't actually use the system. So no system, regardless if it's Vin or one of our competitors, is going to do it for you. There's going to be some basics within the system that is easy to use, and there's some things you're going to have to pay attention. So really what we're going to do is figure out today, walking through the best way to maximize what you can go getting out of your CRM. What we're finding out is that 74.2% of companies are using a CRM system. So that's pretty significant in the marketplace. It's a technology that's been around for a while, and it's continuing to grow. But what we're finding out is a CRM can help you sell more cars if used correctly. The biggest challenge that we see is folks that just want to log in and make it happen. Really, the technology doesn't sell cars. It's your people that sells the cars. We provide a tool to help them be more effective, but it's a partnership of getting the most out of that system. Now, Chris is going to walk through some more details on how to get to that next level of usage. Chris?
Good deal. Sam, thank you very much. I appreciate that. As Sam was kind of talking about with, the CRM and how it can help you sell more cars if used correctly. One of the things that we look at is, literally going to be, leadership. And we look at a lot of percentages, right? You look at how 44% of average dealers and 83% of best-in-class dealers receive regular automated reports from their CRM. So, even with those CRMs, a usage report is found that the average dealer struggles to use their CRM effectively in key areas. Only 44% of average dealers and 83% of those best-in-class dealers receive regular automated reports from their CRM. When you look at emails, you look at only 11% of those emails sent. So how do we fix this? It's a huge question that we get asked a lot on site and also during and purchasing through the CRM are, how do we fix these percentages? How can we improve performance on the CRM? And really, when you look at the top 5 things dealers need to know about CRM training, right? Most importantly, and I cannot stress this enough to each and every one of you that's out there, is about upper management support, leadership from the top. Right? That's one of the biggest keys when implementing a CRM is to make sure that you have buy-in from the top, right, all the way down. Most all CRM tools are not a bottom-up tool. This is a top-down approach. So it's very key that your upper leadership is able to cascade the information down and involve everyone at the dealership in this decision-making process, right? So upper leadership, upper management support is absolutely crucial, right? Now, once you have the upper management support, you're then able to have a full participation in training, right? That's also extremely key. So when you purchase your CRM, it needs to be a strong emphasis when trainers arrive on site to be able to train you on the CRM, lay a good foundation, and really make sure that you have all participants that are there to participate in the training. Now, once you set through training, like I said earlier, that's when the foundation is laid. As you start learning and using the system, right, these are going to be another key point for you guys to be able to continue to evolve and get into more of the high-level usage, right? A lot of dealers use 10 to 15% of the CRM's horsepower and capacity, right? So that's why it takes a vested effort to make sure that you are learning and using the system correctly, okay? Also realizing at your dealerships, it's all culture related, right? You look at the best form of lead generation. So as you look at your virtual showroom, your live showroom, all the opportunities you have, how can you continue to generate leads, mine your database, etc., right? So you want to make sure to have these questions and answers for what CRM that you're currently using. And also realize training is an ongoing process. So just because you have a good foundation during the on-site week, that means you need to have a continuation of that training. A lot of times you don't know what you don't know, right? When I was in the car business, you had to have exposure to be able to continue to learn best approaches. So when you're in training, one of our trainers and trainers for the CRM will be able to show you opportunities that you currently are missing or that you haven't seen yet. So always realizing that training is very key and it's a continuation of your CRM. A good trainer will help formulate a game plan for you to maximize that usage and optimize the usage of your CRM. Now, as we come back and we talked about the top 5 things, I really want to take more of a deep dive into what that upper management support. So when you look at your upper management support, so many times we go in and, we've been there. You have a dealer principal and he was able to go to NADA and he purchases the tool, and sometimes he forgets to cascade the information. Talk about the why of the CRM. We'll get into that here in just a little bit, but it's really important that we understand the why. You as GMs that are out there, make sure your sales managers and your desk managers and your closers, make sure they understand why are we purchasing the CRM? How is it going to help us generate leads? How are we going to be more effective in our dealership process? And you should always ask of the CRM, can this CRM help me customize and work alongside of my dealership process and culture that we already have installed and have worked really hard to have here? So that's also very important. You look at 65% of businesses adopt the CRM within their first 5 years. So think about that for a minute. It takes 5 years for over half of dealerships out there to truly adopt that CRM, right? When you have an opportunity day one to start taking that adoption, having that lead by example approach before the CRM arrives. So it's very, very important to have that upper leadership and have a good visibility and transparency on why that decision was made. You look at 53% of top performing companies are investing in their CRM to drive sales productivity. So what does that mean? Half of your competitors, right, are investing in a CRM because they see the value, right? And when we look across the board and dealerships continuously use 10 to 15% of the potential, then there's so much out there left to be had. But as I mentioned before, making the commitment to the CRM, and we'll talk about some of those strategies a little later on how to do that. Leadership needs to embrace the cultural change, right, in order to grow your business. And I know coming from the car business, many times, decisions get made and then you kind of find the after effect. Well, I can tell you right now, if the leadership is upfront and transparent with the decision, explains the why, then you have more of a want to on the how. And you also, when training comes in, you're able to see the opportunities and be able to change that culture. Or if you have a great culture already, you get a chance to roll alongside that culture and improve it. So it really helps the success of the CRM and ultimately the number one goal, success of the dealership, right? Communication and transparency are key. Training on the CRM answers the why and the how behind the dealership. So once again, when you look at communicating that information down and you talk about, how the CRM answers many questions about how do we generate leads, how are we handling our equity, how well are the managers having accountability and coaching to the salespeople, right? It's an art. Sometimes we get so busy as we sell cars. You guys have a busy Friday, Saturdays, and we forget sometimes those opportunities. We look at it as a numbers game, but if you look at it on a referral game and an opportunistic game, now you have a great way to coach your salespeople to have customers more prepared when they come for the desk. You have a manager who has some really great strategies on how to close for higher gross, right? So the whole dealership functions so much more effectively like a well-oiled machine, right? You look at the dealership, you look at a CRM, and you think of the car engine scenario, right? You have this beautiful car, but you really, have a four-banger versus an eight-banger, right? And you really want to have that CRM to be able to have the horsepower that your dealership needs to go to the next level. So you talk about leadership, and we kind of talked about the upper management. I know we've been through that quite a bit, but how about some of the key players, right? We should ask ourselves as well at dealerships is, what about the key players at the dealership? What about the key players from your vendor, right, as well? You look at trainers, You look at your CRM champion, right? Ask yourself this question right now. How many of you have a true CRM champion? And I don't mean the techie guy that runs all the IT stuff, right? I'm talking about a true CRM champion that understands what the goals of the dealership are, right, and how to drive its usage to drive more sales and equity, right? CRM support staff is also very key. All the administrators, managers, salespeople. So you look at all this as a very nice puzzle, right? And if you take a puzzle and you're not missing any pieces, once you get to the final product, it looks beautiful, right? It looks great. But if you have a puzzle and you're missing one or two pieces, it doesn't look that good, right? So that's why it's really important that when you look and define who the key players are and what each role of those players have, now you're able to truly have a successful utilization of your CRM. You know, the full leadership in training, well, how about the full participation in training, right? So your leadership's cascaded this down, and you kind of look now is, you know, you ask the question, what's in it for me? If I'm a manager, what are you wanting to try to get out of the CRM, right? Hopefully you have that answer because you've had the conversations with your leadership to talk about what's the goals of your dealer, right? If I'm an internet manager, what is my main goal in internet, you know, generating more internet leads? BDC managers, my main goal to, you know, have more appointments confirmed and closed through your dealership, right? Salespeople, what's in it for you, right? How can a CRM help you with your book of business? The old days of the Rolodex, right? And you guys pull the books open, you got multiple pages worth of years of customer information. Now you have all that at your fingertips. And you have an opportunity to not only stay in touch and contact these individuals and potentials, right, but also to be able to get them back on your 24, 36-month turns for equity cars. Who's in your dealership and why should you use it? Okay? It talks about being engaged. We talk about the training, right? We talk about participation in training. Define out, get a good game plan before your trainers arrive on site to participate in training. Identify and communicate with that trainer and say, hey, here's my key areas, here's the key points I want to get out of the training while you're here, okay? The next step to that is you really have to be engaged, right? Be in the moment when you're in these training classes, right? Be in the moment on the one-on-ones. A good CRM vendor is going to have our certified trainers that not only are able to go into the classroom setting, speak the language into the key points your management wants disseminated down, but also to help you be engaged about what is important in the CRM, right? How to lay that solid foundation is key. Learning and using the system. So the only way to truly learn is by doing, right? You certainly can read a book and get a great idea and concept, but until you truly apply yourself and work in the tool, that's the only way you're going to be able to learn it, right? You might be able to read a book on how to swim, but I promise you, if you get out there and jump in the water and you haven't practiced it, it's not going to end well for you, okay? So you want to make sure that you get into the CRM, and this is sales, managers, admins, right? Let's say you go back to what I mentioned earlier with that game plan. What's your game plan? You know, admins, have you set the system up for success? Have you had the decision makers make the right decisions on how you want your dealership to function, right? So now that information can go down and hopefully the managers have involved in those conversations, right? So management team, make sure you have two pieces, great accountability and great coaching. So many people that purchase a CRM, they forget about the aspect of coaching, right, and motivating salespeople. We think of the blocking and tackling, right, but we don't always tell them and show them the how and the why of doing it. So when you have salespeople who have gone out there and they've qualified an individual in a car that's not right for them, they get to the desk and you get ready to close, how much harder is it to close a customer on the wrong vehicle, right? So you have an opportunity in your CRM to be able to identify those. The save a deal the next day. How many vehicles did we not get potential customers on their trades? It's an opportunity to continue to drum up more business and own more vehicles, right? So you have to learn and use the system to be able to see these opportunities and practice them and get better at them. So, how do you help you improve as a salesperson, right? So salespeople, this is something that really was designed to help you drive customers, get a higher closing percentage on the ones you do, mine your database effectively, search your customer database, and have all the contact information there. You literally can make every connection count on anyone that you meet. It will help you maximize leads so much more effectively, right? You can set up processes. You can set up campaigns that go out to your customers, right? And you're able to truly follow up. So when you have that individual who buys from you today, and in 24 to 36 months, we want them to come back in to purchase another vehicle, right? Also, and make some more money on that one that they purchased the first time, you're able to effectively follow up, stay in communication, and get that customer back into the showroom. Okay? So, when you look at getting your CRM up and running, right? So we've kind of defined out the upper leadership, how key and important that is. The really participation in training, being engaged. Now you're really wanting to say, after we've seen the key players, how do you get your CRM up and running, right? How do you really get a good kickoff off the ground? Well, it starts where you currently are, your current dealership process, and it will help you have a really good view of where are we as a dealership? Where are we wanting to go to continue to stay ahead of our competition, right? It'll also help you identify impact players. Now that's very, very key as you guys are looking at installing your CRM. Impact players make impact plays. Who's going to carry the torch at your dealership, right? This should be a question that you guys are all asking on a leadership standpoint is, who are my impact players? Who's going to help us continue to grow the dealership with the same philosophies we believe in? Building and laying a good foundation. Many times we have trainers that go in and, we start laying foundational pieces and we really get some great high individuals that are very excited to learn more about advanced strategies of equity mining and service drive adoption and, and in so many areas there. But unless you have a great foundation, right, you really tend to miss some of the smaller, quicker, low-hanging fruit that's key to your dealership, right? Those are the areas you want to really focus on. I'll always tell anyone this at a dealership, execute the basics perfectly. Then build that foundation and grow your dealership, right? Once again, the reoccurring trainings. I can't continue to stress it enough. We don't know what we don't know, and until somebody is able to educate us on those opportunities, then we'll continue to miss them, right? And there's a lot of money, there's a lot of revenue, in those areas that you guys really haven't seen yet. If you've had multiple CRM vendors before, and you think, well, gosh, this is their fourth CRM. We really don't need training. We've done this before. Well, keep it in mind, this is a new product, right? This is a new CRM that you're taking hold of. You don't know all the same information. You don't know all the same ways to get what you need out of the new one. So make sure you guys really have a strong emphasis on training. All right. So, one of the things we talk about is what questions, right, for your CRM system. So you kind of look at when you're, looking at vendors and you're looking at, starting up, et cetera, you kind of look at startup and onboarding, and you kind of talk a little bit about, what does that vendor offer, right? So what is that CRM vendor that you're looking at? What do they offer? Do they offer just on-site training? Do they offer a learning lane or on-demand or e-academy videos? Do they offer virtual training, right? So, there's a big belief we have, and I have a strong belief in this, is that it's like a puzzle. Each piece fits with the other, and each piece builds on the other, right? So you look at on-demand access to video training. Now, granted, I'm from the car business as well, so I understand sitting behind, a computer for multiple hours can be daunting. So one of the things the CRM vendor should offer is the interactive quizzes, right? That's going to keep the individual engaged, and also it solidifies what that learning process looks like, right? It's also key to have role-specific courses. So, I don't really need an inventory manager who strictly goes and buys my cars, going in there and looking at how to enter customers, right? Or going there and looking at how to maximize profit at the desk if that's not his role, right? If I have a CRM champion and we have a strong emphasis on mobile, I need to have a role-specific course that teaches them what they need to know versus a lot of different, pieces that's not pertinent to their role, right? So role-specific courses. Proof of certification, right? That's also really key. So, we think of accountability, and one area that you should look at as a CRM provider, or excuse me, a CRM, or if you're looking for a CRM, is to make sure that when they are able to go through these on-demands or virtual training, that you have some accountability, right? We want to make sure that we have that lead-by-example approach so that when you guys have your team members go through these trainings, guess who can ask the questions? And I always tell team members, you certainly don't want to not have answers for questions when your manager asks them, right? So the best way to have those, go through the virtual training, do the on-demands, right? That'll prepare you for the on-site training, right? And again, when we get to the on-site training, we continue to lay that foundation we talked about earlier. Now we have a certified trainer with a physical presence, an individual who's there, who's from the industry, who understands the culture of the car buying experience, and most importantly, somebody who's walked the walk. Anytime I hire an individual, they better have been in the car, the car industry, right, the automotive industry, because it's really important that they understand what the goal, the end result is going to be when working at the dealership, right? So that physical presence is really crucial. Tool utilization. So our certified trainers are going to be able to show you how to really maximize the usage of your tool, right? So, it's great to go in and learn the basics, but, down the road offering consultative training, and we talked about the reoccurring training, that's where you can strategize and have a nice game plan to say, here's a strong emphasis we want to work on. Of course, customer entry is always key, but what if we want to look at how do we mine the database, right? What should I do with 30,000 orphan customers, right? And so many times we get, managers and GMs, and they're so excited, they're ready just to blast, write a big email out there. Well, this is where that strategy comes in that says, what if I marketed those individuals, right? What if I actually took a certain set of those individuals that matched a criteria that I was running a promotion on and targeted them that way, right? Now, backing that up, what is your strategy? So many times we get excited to send that out, but we really want to come back and say, well, how are we going to handle those leads? Are we really set up to handle the new business? What are we going to say? How are we going to close the appointment? These are questions to make sure to ask before we just start, running with the tool, and that's how utilization comes into play. Real-world application. Once again, we talk so much in training about the buttons and the buttonology. That's important. You guys have to know where those basics are. But one of the most important things a CRM provider should provide is application-based training. In other words, I want scenarios that happen every day at your dealership, right? I don't want to create theories. I want to create real-world applications that you guys are already doing that you're going to see and be able to utilize those points today, okay? So that's where those real-world applications are so important, because that's exactly how you'll use the tool pre-post on-site from training. Just like tool utilization, what about the advanced functions, right? Go back to that game plan once again. How do we want to start strategizing those 24 to 36-month customers who just purchased? How do we want to use some of the advanced equity mining in the tool, right? How do we want to maximize those opportunities at the desk log, right, on customers and their trades? Those are some areas that we start diving into. How do we have that connection between sales and service to where a service customer comes in and we're able to see exactly where they are in their car buying experience, that now we might be able to offer them a brand new vehicle and maybe keep their payment the same, right? Those are some advanced functions the CRM's going to be able to help you do, right? And finally, personalized, customized training, right? So anytime you're looking at a CRM, you need to make sure that this CRM can be customized to fit my dealer specifics and my dealership process, right? We don't want to come in as a vendor and change your process. We want to come in and work alongside of it, right? Again, circling all the back around to the very first part of upper leadership management, having a good process, a good coaching, right, and cascade that down. So that's one of the on-site training pieces that are really important. You know, you look at training for specific areas, right? We talked about this, the 101 certified trainer access, right? Most effective daily duties, right? So in other words, what are the key points you should do every single day, right? Make sure that you have a really good identity at your dealership on how it functions and how you utilize those daily duties. Best process steps and accountability, right? So in other words, that goes back to the admins. We talked about those key players, right? You remember at the bottom left we had administrators. This is an area that you guys come in and have set up the process steps for accountability and follow-up, right? The processes, once again, that's the engine of the CRM. They make it go. So making sure those process steps are key on what you want. And then you also be able to circle back around and have accountability, right? And this isn't necessarily accountability for who's doing the wrong thing. It's accountability for, hey, who can we help do the right thing? Who can we coach most successfully to make sure not only are they successful, but the dealership's goals are as well, right? A team environment, right? Make sure we create a team environment for the CRM so everybody's on board. If one team member isn't on board, then we all struggle, and we all have to make up for that. So part of that is in your sales processes, in your sales meetings. You guys should have the CRM meetings in there as well and talk about the data that it's able to give you. And also making sure those processes are aligned, right? You have aligned processes with your dealership culture is also very important, right? Now, when you look at continual evaluation and improvement, right, of utilizing and your CRM performance, when you look at that CRM provider, right, also ask questions as well about what is their support system, what else do they offer alongside the training. You guys remember when I talked about that puzzle and that synergy, right? You want to make sure your vendor has strong performance managers, right? That's also very, very key because those performance managers, they're going to take the baton. They're going to take the torch once the trainer leaves, and they're going to help you manage the performance of that account. And that's really key because not only, just like the trainers, they're able to see those opportunities you can't see, and they also help bring them to your attention. They help manage that performance of your CRM. So live industry webinars are also very important. So anytime you can continue that learning experience, right? We talked about that earlier. How can we have a continuation of the learning experience? No better way of doing that than live industry webinars as well, okay? First click resolution. First click resolution is important from our support staff, that you're able to call in, you're able to ask a question and get a very quick resolution on what that problem may be, right? So ask yourself a question of that CRM vendor. Do I have these components? Do I have the support system to continue to help and learn on the CRM? You know, we all talk about at a dealership when we're on site about drinking from a fire hose scenario, right? And that's truly what it is. You know, when you're trying to get your CRM and you're learning all these basic and some advanced functions, it's like drinking from a fire hose, right? So try to understand is, hey, I want to get the basics, and I'm going to have some help to maximize the CRM and maximize our profit as well, right? Now, we also offer, and a lot of CRMs offer this as well, elite level users, right? We have a summit for elite level users. It's called our VinWorks Summit. And, you know, specifically to VinWorks, we're able to offer the highest level of training, the highest level of support, advanced strategies, and consult your dealerships on what are those best practices out there, right? What are some of the areas that are commonly missed to make sure you don't forget the low-hanging fruit, and then how can we also plant seeds to continue to grow to get to those advanced strategies, advanced target, pro, and campaigning, etc., right? So these regional performance, we also have, like I mentioned, the VinWorks. We have the performance manager workshops as well. These are also offered in your region. I would strongly advise anytime you get a message that those are going to be local to you, try to carve out a couple hours and attend, right? You're going to learn so much about what it is that you can maximize at your dealership. Okay? Now, we talk about, what is the best form of lead generation, right? So many dealers used to buy customer lists and, used to look for opportunities to create more leads. Well, I can answer that question. The best form of lead generation is going to be a CRM, right? A CRM is going to help your virtual showroom. It's going to help your live showroom. It's going to help your equity mining. It's going to help your follow-ups. It's going to help your service drive. There's not an area of your business that a CRM cannot impact, right? And you take those impact players, right, we identified earlier, now you have a winning combination, right? And when you look at some of the data and you look at the 74% of users, said that the main benefit of using the CRM is to improve customer service. So not only are you passing that on, but you're passing it to your clients as well, right, your customers. 56% of users cited improved customer retention. So 1 out of 2 said that, hey, we are able to retain customers more effectively, right? 54% of users see increased sales. So once again, 1 out of 2 of your competitors are increasing sales within their CRM. Here's the big one, right? We all talk about ROI, and you should have an ROI report inside the tool. For every $1 spent, the CRM, there is a $5 plus average rate of return. I'll take that all day. I don't know about you guys, but that is a really, really great ROI. So, as you look at your CRM and you're able to continue to have a return, one that is that great, then you want to make sure to maximize it. And I will tell you that return continues to go up more and more the more you utilize all aspects of your CRM. By doing what? Following a game plan, strategizing, cascading down from upper leadership. So, you look at that 74% of respondents to a CRM user survey indicated that their CRM software allowed them to have greater access to customer data, right? So, when you look at your CRM, you have all these opportunities, you have all these strategies and ideas to make more money, to create a higher ROI with the same CRM you're currently using or looking to use. If you look at the CRM as a whole, it focuses on all aspects of lead generation. Now, I asked the question earlier, right? What's the best way to generate leads? It's going to be a CRM, right? In closing, remember this. If it's not in the CRM, it didn't really happen. And that's going to be a great starting point for each of you that are using your CRM. If you've been a CRM user for 5 years or you just start next week, get everything inside the CRM or it never really happened. With that being said, I'm going to pass it back to Mr. Sam Passer. Thank you.
All right.
Great.
Sam, do you want me to give you the control back, Sam?
Yeah, that'd be great. So really what
Okay.
we're focusing on is training is an ongoing process. Really what we have with that is you come in, you learn about the CRM when you go live, but really you sometimes don't know what questions to ask. You're drinking through the fire hose. There's a lot of the details that sometimes you don't know the right questions until you jump in. So as we see on our next slide with ongoing training, after that first go live, it's a continued learning approach. You utilize what you learn. You're able to go to user conferences. Then we have something called VinWorks. Other CRM providers have similar types of user conferences. Always ask what you can do next. Use the tool to drive accountability. As Chris was talking about, a lot of the certifications are provided by attending classes or during virtual training. And also, if your vendor provides it, have your trainers come back on site in regular interviews to make sure you're getting the most out of what you need. And then really on the next slide, we've got why training matters. So what's important is be willing to learn and have a commitment to the CRM. And one of my favorite stories for training, and you don't see this very often, is I was sitting in watching one of our trainers deliver a presentation, and someone walked in, and one of the attendees said, hey, we've got someone here to see you. And I saw the salesperson sitting there, and he goes, hey, sorry, will you sell this car for me? Can you handle it? I'm learning about the CRM and this is what I need to be successful in the future. And after I used both hands to pick my jaw up, I'd never seen somebody that engrossed in wanting to learn how to use the system. That person's commitment to me just floored me because they said, well, this one sale is going to be nice and I'm going to have a nice commission off that, but what I'm going to learn in this session is going to help me sell more cars in the future. And that type of commitment, I think, is just unparalleled. And that really begins at the top, the store leadership. Chris said what happens in the CRM, that's, it doesn't happen if it doesn't happen in the CRM. So log that so you can do all the right follow-up. And that will have everyone embracing it, and having that training that happens really helps it grow. Really on the next slide, we've got invitation for questions. My information, Chris's information, if you want to give us a call. And then I know, Brian, you've got questions for Rouse. So if you want to read those off to us, and if you have questions on the line, feel free to type them in, and Brian can moderate.
Okay, everybody. This is Brian Ankney with Auto Success again. If you haven't already, please type your questions into the question box. We already went over at the beginning, how that works. Our first question today is, who should be part of the shopping and deciding on a CRM process?
So I can tell you.
So I think one of the things that we see from time to time is a lack of buy-in. So to me, I think whoever is the decision maker in the store that's going to get folks to listen. And if your store operates as a democracy where you want several people in, then there's nothing wrong with doing a webinar or a demo of the system and inviting your key members of your staff to go. If you tend to be more top-down and whatever your GM or your DP says goes, and if you're the one that's enamored with the system and you want to make it happen and you're going to drive that adoption down, really to the point of it starts at the top. So, if your store is, I'm the boss and what I say goes, then you should be making that call, and you can drive that and drive that accountability and that adoption. If it's more of a everyone's working together team environment, even if that's the CRM that you want, you're 99% sure, I've actually seen our clients that would say, hey, you know what, I'm going to go with you guys, but I want the store to feel like it's their decision too. And so they're part of that, and they're driving the decision. And there's a lot of difference that we'll see of when the store feels like they're engaged in the process and what that adoption looks like. So I think there's a couple options there, but I think in summary, the more people that feel included, the more excited they are about willing to learn and embrace the change.
Chris, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Sam's right on point. One of the biggest things we see is, again, that adoption. And like he had mentioned, in that decision-making process, we've seen some of the most successful dealers who have, had the demo, they've had meetings with their management staff, and they've also brought in and talked about it with their sales staff as well. So when you look at a more granular level, they really explain the why. And I think, Brian, that's one of the biggest questions we get, and it's a struggle. I can tell you, we have trainers that go into stores, and the lack of buy-in is the #1 cause the CRM fails. So when you look at that, then that's so key. That decision-making process is the foundation that really jump-starts that CRM usage.
All right. Our next question is, how many hours of video training should a salesperson / manager spend or do before the on-site training?
I'll jump in there and take that one. As many as it offered, and that's probably the easy answer there, Brian, is, you will never spend too much time, right, learning about the CRM beforehand. So any available class on a learning lane and on-demand and e-academy, I would strongly advise you to take. That's going to lay that foundation approach. You're going to have a good idea of, one, how to do some of the fundamentals, log into the tool, enter a customer, log a phone call, etc. As a manager, you're going to have a good exposure to some of those manager daily duties, closing showroom visits, the desk log. So what a great way to have an introduction that you can already start to see how you're going to be able to start using the tool. And it'll help some of those discovery questions to say, wow, we didn't really know that some of this was available. This really looked now at our dealership process, and let's create alignment in how we want to be successful. So that's why it's a strong opportunity to look at these classes and go through those and learn as much as you can beforehand.
All right. Sam, is there anything you'd like to add to that one?
Yeah, it was good. Thanks, Kristen.
Okay. Actually, you know what? This next question, I want to add a little extra to the end of it. It says, how frequently should we do refresher training? And then I'd like to know, does that normally coincide with new features or new best practices? Maybe if you could answer that in both ways.
Sure. So when you look at refresher training, that's very much of an individual approach. But in general, it's always good to be in front of on-site every 3 to 4 months. And I say that because of that reason. There's a lot of new features that come out in the CRM. And when you have a progressive CRM that's very innovative, these changes come out often. Now, if you have a CRM champion, as we talked about earlier, you really have somebody who's passionate, who's committed to making your CRM successful, understands that dealership end goal. This individual also can be the one that's, looking through, formulating that strategy to cascade information down. So anytime a CRM has these updates, these are also sent out as well to your dealership. So this CRM champion should be in connection with their performance manager. They should be actually understanding what are some new features coming out and already thinking about how to devise an action plan to disseminate those down. So the reoccurring trainings, as mentioned, are very individualized. If you have a progressive dealer, a strong CRM champion, this is somebody who's going to get that information down. We just don't see that as effectively, right? So in that sense, we do say it would be great to get in front of a dealership every 90 days. Have your performance manager there and in communication with them constantly, asking questions, asking what we can do next. And that way you have some accountability and you're kind of hitting that timeline.
All right. Our next question here is, how can one help other departments understand the importance of actually using the CRM every time? And it's not clear which department the person asking the question is in, but maybe if you want to touch that from a couple different departments.
Sure. I think that really it's when the whole store works together, I think, that you're firing on all cylinders. And I'll take it from a couple examples, and I'll start, and I'll let Chris jump in after that. Really getting those leads in, whether it's a phone up, walk up, or an internet lead coming in, capturing that, making the most of that connection, that opportunity. I'd even say if someone's coming in through the service drive as a repairer, getting that in, that's someone that you can market back to sell. So getting that lead in the system, regardless of the source, at any entry point in the store is critical, because that data is key. You have stores that are buying data from third-party sources, but you're not entering things that walk in or flow into your store. So capturing that at every point is absolutely critical. I think once the data gets in, you've got lead information. And so what did you do with that lead and documenting that? I think every store should look at their lead to showroom visit, from showroom visit to close percentages to help gauge their effectiveness as prospective clients really move through your sales funnel, if you will. And tracking that every step of the way helps gauge efficiency. So if you're a BDC or you're an internet sales department and you get that lead in and there's no follow-up that's done, then your showroom folks aren't doing aren't providing that transparency of what happened after a lead was generated. So what I would say is every step is important, and being able to have visibility in that entire sales process and that road to the sale is going to give your sales management staff what they need to kind of gauge the process, and really it's going to have your folks what happens to really close those deals. I don't know, Chris, if there's anything else that you want to chime in there?
Yeah, I heard the question. I think the question was how, how do you get the other departments? And the one, answer I would give to that is to give them the why as well, right? So once again, we focus on salespeople entering customers, and we focus on managers closing visits. But really understanding the why is it important to have salespeople entered in the service drive, right? Why is it important for the internet team to, have these leads and making sure to try to close on the appointment to get the salesperson in? Each component works in a synergistic way, right? So when you look at each and every one of your departments, and I think the question was how, was give them the why. Give them the understanding of when that customer gets entered into the tool, the most important person is the internet lead generation and the salesperson entering the customer in. Because once that customer gets inside the tool, now you're able to do so many things with them, not just now, but down the road, right? That's why it's so key in capturing that data. You'll be able to eventually sit down, if I'm an internet manager, let's say I'm the GSM and I'm going to sit down with my GM and give him numbers. Or I'm the GM and I'm going to sit there and talk with my, my dealer principal and say, hey, we've improved because the past 2 months, we're missing on $35,000 this month. Now we're missing 23. We're moving in the right direction, but he wants to know where and how we're missing that. Well, when I look and see my closing percentage is down around 13% on showroom ups, and my B-backs are not much higher than that, and I see my grosses have dropped, well, now I have a place to start fixing these opportunities, right? I have answers to questions. So that's how you get buy-in from the other departments, is making sure they understand they are key players in this whole leadership process.
All right. Actually, Dan, I see your question on there. That's a little bit more of a product-specific question, so I'm going to forward this to our presenters after the show, or after the webinar, and have them reach out directly to answer that question. With that being said, it looks like that is the end of our questions for today. This is Brian Ankney with Auto Success. I'd really like to thank everybody that came and attended today. We had a huge audience today for this presentation. I'd also like to thank Sam and Chris for taking the time out of their day to share with us today. If there's anyone in your dealership that you feel could benefit from watching this webinar again, it has been recorded and it will be available. Everyone on this call will get an email from me thanking you for attending. It is an automated email, but it is my real email address. So please just reply if there's something, if you have a question, if you would like to be put in contact with my presenters, if you would like to see the recording, or you can also contact the presenters directly. Their contact information is on the screen. Sam and Chris, is there anything that you guys would like to share with our audience today before we let them go?
I just want to thank everyone for their time. It's really to hammer the message home is the product's only as good as the people that's using it. And if it was easy, then everyone would be selling cars like crazy. So I think getting the most out of your CRM takes a commitment, and I think it's a partnership with you and your provider to make that happen.
Yeah, I'll add to that, Sam, and just also to say I really appreciate everybody taking the time out here to learn a few things. But you take a great process, you take great people, and that's how you equal success. So I strongly encourage each of you to evaluate your process, evaluate and coach your people, right? And when doing that, make sure that everybody's on the same page and with the CRM. So that's the last thing I could probably tell you, and probably the most important one as well. So make sure you're all on the same page with your CRM and you're utilizing it to the most effective manner.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for coming. If you thought this webinar was valuable, please join us for a future webinar. Also, let other people in the dealership know about Auto Success webinars. I'm sure we'll have Sam and Chris back again here soon. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time. I hope you have found some valuable information, and I would love to see you on a future Auto Success webinar. Have a great afternoon.